Yeah, I definitely can't believe this manga. Sue Ishida has been on a roll as of lately, and if you've been reading Choujin X, it's been nothing but a blast, especially between our two main characters, Azuma and Tokyo. Now, we've seen Tokyo evolve and learn and start to understand his Choujin ability a lot more. We've seen a lot of different variations for it, but the most recent stuff, our attention has been on Azuma, which since the beginning of the story, the idea that Azuma and his Choujin power awakening could be absolutely anything was up in the air. I think a lot of us thought it would be a lion. At least that was what was symbolized and referenced, very similar to Tokyo and his vulture. But it turns out it is absolutely none of that. Instead, it has taken hold of probably one of his deepest, darkest desires or emotions, his mentality, something that we don't see on the surface and that has been lingering underneath. And there's been teasers or slight references to how he feels specifically all throughout the series so far, but it's never outright given to you. Even now, with his evolution into, I believe what we're going to call the Moon Beast for now, is still uncertain, but it definitely paints a much clearer picture. So on one hand, we originally view Azuma as being very prideful, very powerful, stoic, even at the top, the pinnacle of what someone could potentially be. But little by little, we've seen kind of the disgusting side of it, the toxic mentality that starts to drip feed into itself, either because of his parents, his childhood, or specifically his jealousy. Even though Azuma and Tokyo are friends, and Azuma in every single aspect is quote unquote better than Tokyo, you would ask yourself, why would he be jealous of someone like Tokyo? The way I see it, Tokyo has this scale. If he's at the bottom, he's willing to rise and fight and continue to improve himself so often, so constantly, to become something much greater, to become so efficient in whatever he's putting his mind to. And we've seen that throughout the story. So he's come from the bare minimum, the bottom line, and has raised up exponentially. This is incredible growth. Azuma is someone that is already at the top and cannot go any further. He is kind of hard stuck. He's limited, so he becomes bored. He becomes complacent, but when someone actually challenges him, he may still win, but that desire, that passion, that fight, that drive that he has is only slightly initiated because the other person is going through this length of growth. So for me, at the moment, he's most likely jealous of Tokyo for how much work and growth that he can put into being someone greater. And even though Azuma has made those steps for himself already, he's warped this interpretation quite a bit, even to the point where he views Tokyo as looking down on him, being disrespectful towards him, and it spirals out of control into this super ugly nature where you see it manifest into his Choujin abilities. Quick sidebar, I'm going to try and decipher his Choujin appearance. He's honestly completely naked, but he's shackled, and then he even has chains at one point that morph over his body when he starts to lose control. But this cape that he has around his neck also kind of covers his head like a mask, and it's completely faceless. So I'm thinking what fits Azuma is that he kind of sees himself as a hero, and that's someone that he wants to be, hence the cape. But because his personality is so warped with his emotions and how he views things and how he has this potential deep-rooted pocket of toxicity inside of him, it's made him faceless. His identity is completely gone. He does not have a humanity switched on, and then he's just kind of going through the motions, being propelled or fueled by his emotions, which in a Choujin-like state is extremely dangerous. We've seen how the senses get heightened, and if it becomes too much, you lose control. You go into some sort of chaos state and you either have to be knocked out of it or killed completely. Fun fact, Azuma almost went into this mode. When the chains started to form around his hands, he himself was even confused. He was questioning, what is this? He grew these very odd looking appendages out of his hands that look like they're about to shoot laser beams of some sort. Luckily, by all things, he gets knocked out of it by a car. But you can see how fragile and unstable his mindset is. He wasn't even provoked in that sense. It was just Tokyo trying to talk to him, trying to calm him down, trying to understand the situation, and still it escalated quite drastically. Other than this, there's a lot of different interpretations for Azuma. Mind you, he is coming back from death, so there's one aspect there that could be his Choujin power being triggered by his death, which might amplify it further, it might extrapolate it down different avenues, it might warp him inherently. We don't really know the process of what Azuma's Choujin form is going to be or how it's going to affect his human state. Is he going to be an everyday human being is even going to remember what happened in this Choujin state, because he is coherent. He does know Tokyo, he does recognize all of these people, but one of the other interpretations that I was talking about is that it would seem his humanity is gone, that he has no kind of human morality to himself whatsoever, and he's willing to just act on his own inner desire, and that is to fight Tokyo, to battle him in a fair combative state, because he knows he will grow and experience and get the upper hand on him. Ishida has done a phenomenal job in framing this context, this fight, these two characters, and just how much emphasis he's giving it. Unfortunately, it also sets up a very grim future for both of them, with there being inherent heavy symbolic ideas surrounding one of them dying, or them fighting to the death, which could be most likely something you expect by the end of the story. If we're going to build these characters further, one of them meeting their demise sounds absolutely perfect, and we know from first-hand experience that Ishida does not shy away from doing this. We witnessed it with Hide from Tokyo Ghoul. With all of this, it makes me extremely excited for the future, where the story is going to go from here and where Ishida wants to take his characters. I assume we're going to build on Azuma and Tokyo a lot more. That is the prime heart of the story, but how does he decide to do that? We can hypothetically think of a direction for Tokyo, which makes sense, but with Azuma, a lot of it is left up in the air. Only as of recently has he become more efficient within the story, and that we've slowly opened up his past, his emotions, his mentality, and now we're getting his Choujin form. I want to say it's going to be a very turbulent time when he turns back to normal, but there's also an equal chance that nothing happens at all, that he may not even remember it, or he may be very apologetic about it, which for me, thinking about it now, sounds like a rather interesting idea, that his Choujin form completely wipes or erases his human side, so to speak, and brings out his inner desires. The problem with that is that it's not controllable. It's not something that he can acknowledge that there is a problem here and learn how to fix it, because that would mean that he has to learn how to fix himself, or more specifically, heal. We know there's a past, we know there's a trauma inside of both of them, and how they deal with that obviously reflects in their Choujin-like state. Tokyo is growing very beautifully, but he has a long way to go. But we know that it goes much further than where he is now. The same can be said for Azuma. It seems the morph type Choujin isn't rare or unknown, but his speed, his efficiency, even though a lot of it is amplified by the original human body's ability, is beyond anything that a lot of people have already seen. Mind you, he is not in a chaos state. This is his first time obviously transforming, and he took out 5 odd people, 6 odd people with ease. Some of these people have been fighting for a very long time. His speed is unmatched, his power is unmatched, the way he morphs and flows throughout the sky, completely unmatched. Currently, power-wise, he is unstoppable, but Tokyo may be able to get through to him, considering he is partially coherent. Obviously, talking about this situation, I have to talk about the artwork that accompanies it. Absolutely phenomenal. Of course, Ishida's artwork is always beautiful. It's always very pretty, very symbolic, very powerful, right? But I've noticed with Choujin, with the amount of freedom that he has, the flexibility, the time he's able to take to master what he wants to achieve, there is a lot more creativity. There's a lot more visual prowess that flows through his artistry. There's a lot of super creative ability structures. There's a lot of scenic stuff and very powerful poses and just characters making an appearance, and how that perfectly weaves with all of the ideas that he wants to manifest onto his pages, onto his work. The absolute best example I can give of this is Azuma's introduction with his Choujin form. See, we didn't know this was coming. It wasn't something that was built up towards. It wasn't something that had this eerie tension kind of around it. We just seen him get obliterated. We seen him die, we seen him vanish, and then the chapter continue on like normal. There was very slight references to him with Tokyo finding him obviously, but came in at the end of the chapter. So it continues as normal, and the final panel that you actually see, just to end it off, is a being standing in the darkness on top of rooftops with a very crescent moon behind them. Such a beautiful introduction. Once again, no tension, nothing was built up towards it. In the back of our minds, we knew something was coming, but you couldn't feel it throughout the chapter. And then you get hit with that drop, and it creates this very compelling feeling inside of yourself that makes you question a lot of things. See, that was the end of the chapter. We then reel back a little bit to see his transformation process in the following, which very creative, very intuitive, very Moon Knight-esque, which I believe a lot of it is inspired by Moon Knight, because Ishida was saying that he was a big fan of it, he drew some artwork for Moon Knight, and he really enjoyed the show at the time, and I believe a lot of those references from that show happened to creatively attach itself to Azuma and his Choujin ability, which I think works really well in hindsight when you think about where Azuma's mindset is and how contorted it could actually be, but artistically it's very beautiful, it's very pretty. Seeing him kind of take these steps to evolve further, because we've seen his evolution from Tokyo Ghoul to Tokyo Ghoul Re, now he even went back to do the first chapter. You most likely won't see that with Choujin X, but you'll see a lot more scenery, a lot more creative outlets and way he expresses things that feels entirely more inspiring. A way a character poses or is flowing through the air or transforming, everything feels like it has an intent and a purpose, an idea and or a meaning behind it. And while for us we could sit here endlessly and overthink it, at the end of the day it looks cool, super beautiful, and I'm continuously impressed by it. I know a lot of people had issues with his volume cover, each to their own. Personally, I really loved him. Very simple, very stylistic, right up his alley of what he likes to do. Especially that third volume, the newest one with Azuma's form, it just looks eerie. It looks creepy, you don't know what to expect, and if you're a random person just browsing it and seeing that type of imagery, I think it draws the exact response, that alluring nature, that mystery, that what on earth is this type attitude. With all of this beautiful development, beautiful growth, and the future of Choujin X, I do have good news. We will be getting potentially another chapter before the end of this month. I just seen a tweet right before I started recording this that Ishida wants to try and get out another one before the end of May, which has a very high chance of bringing this Tokyo and Azuma fight to a close. In my head, 2 more chapters would be nice, but with how long they can be, I think the next one could easily do it, and maybe that's why he wants to push it forward a lot quicker. Or maybe he's just having a lot of fun with it. Ishida is very unpredictable with these chapters, and it's kind of a unique reading experience, so you may not be comfortable, but you'll always get something absolutely incredible to indulge within. At the end of the day, that's kind of what matters, right? An enjoyable reading experience where the author is healthy, having fun with their own work, and being super creative, telling the story that they want to tell. With all of that, however, leave a like, subscribe, go check out my second channel, and I'll see you within the next one. Goodbye.